had me from the start. By the way you stared, the way you wrote it for me, yeah. Man, I felt your energy. Wasn't used to being loved and treated differently, yeah. But something went wrong, the signals got crossed, and now we're on completely different pages. Let's go where we were, where no one gets hurt. Baby, keep it right there, don't you stress the flow. You're trying to pick the pace up, we should take it slow. Baby, keep your focus, don't you make me change my mind. If you love me, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Boy, you take me on a trip, always up and down and back and forth in merry-go-round. I just wanna get it right, but when you go left, I'm stuck here feeling left behind. Cause something went wrong, the signals got crossed, and now we're going different directions. Let's go where we were, where no one gets hurt. Baby, keep it right there, don't you stress the flow. You're trying to pick the pace up, we should take it slow. Baby, keep your focus, don't you make me change my mind. If you love me, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. If you love me just like you say you do, don't kill the good vibes. If you kill them, you're gonna kill us too. Baby, keep it right there, don't you stress the flow. You're trying to pick the pace up, we should take it slow. Baby, keep your focus, don't you make me change my mind. If you love me, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe. Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Episode 7, Season 5 of the Ever Evolving Podcast. If you did not know, this is the season closer. Yeah, I didn't really tell anybody because I didn't want y'all saying, no, we want more episodes. No, we're done. This is the last one. I'm getting ready for the holidays, y'all, and I have trips planned and just some much needed rest, okay? I got some much needed rest penciled in my schedule and a lot of things coming down the pipeline for 2022. So, yeah, this is our season closer. And listen, I got a feeling it's going to be a good one, okay? I got a feeling that tonight is going to be one of the best ones we've had. Listen, I always know when the episode's going to be good and the conversation's going to be good by the chaos that comes before, huh? Yeah. Anytime there's calm before the storm, you'd be like, okay, the episode, it was cool. But anytime it's chaotic on the back end, I already know it's going to be an amazing episode. So this one's going to be good. I am not going to prolong the time. I'm going to start bringing in our guests. We have some amazing ladies and a gentleman with us tonight. I'm super excited, y'all. Listen, I've never done this with a guest co-host. Okay, so I'm excited. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Make sure you share this live. I know people usually trickle in as we begin to talk. So make sure you share. Make sure as you're watching, you share with somebody. We're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. All right, and we're on Twitter too. But not many people watch us over there. You know, people don't know we over there, but we're over there too. All right. So I'm gonna start bringing on these guests, these amazing ladies and gentlemen. Our first guest is Miss Erica Warren. How are you, Erica? I can't hear you, boo.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hey, love.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. We here. Okay, we out here, huh?
Well, I'm glad to be here with you.
Thank you. Introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are and what it is that you do.
My name is Erica Warren, and I am the co-host of Dope Discussions Live with my co-host Gator Live. I am also a relationship, self-love, life purpose, dating, and breakup recovery virtual coach for women. So I help women get back out there in the dating game after they've gone through their healing process after a breakup. I also help them build up their self-love so that they can make better choices in their relationships. And I do customer service for Amazon. So people be trying to call me to get the hookup. I be like, I can't hook you up with nothing.
Listen, you do all the things. Okay. I just love you. I really do. I just love you. I love everything that you do now. I didn't know about the breakup recovery. We're going to have to talk about that. Not for me, but people I know. You know, it's kind of breakup season for a few folks. So thank you for sharing that. All right.
Thank
All
you.
right. I'm going to bring on our next guest, Miss Altagracia Felix. How are you?
I am doing good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. I'm doing well. Excited to be here. And I thought my ringer was off, but that's my mama and she bypasses that.
Listen, tell mama to come on and watch the live, okay? How are you? Tell the
She
people.
bypasses the security. But no, I'm happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Yes.
It has been a crazy week for me too. So I can
Listen.
totally dig it.
Well, let the people know who you are and what it is that you do, Miss Altagracia.
Yes. So I'm Altagracia Felix, and I am a spiritual guide and an intuitive trauma coach. And I specialize in helping women heal from their toxic relationships by working with their shadow and befriending their shadow so that they can do the inner work that's necessary so that they can walk into their desires. So
Ooh, that's a heavy
love what I
work,
do.
ain't it? That's a heavy but necessary work.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
love it.
yes.
I love it. All right. Our next young lady here is Miss Bernadette Jackson. How are you, Bernadette?
I'm good. How are you?
Good girl, good girl. Introduce yourself.
I am Bernadette Jackson. I am a relationship engagement strategist, and I help fatherless daughters to understand how their father loss has affected them in relationships and to get to the amazing relationships that they deserve by teaching them how to be authentic in both relationships and in business. So that's me.
Wow. Listen, I love that you all dive into the relationship piece and the self love and the healing and the shadow work and the recovery. All of those pieces are necessary. And that is why I invited you on tonight because all of you are having very integral work that I think is going to come in handy for tonight's conversation. Okay, last but certainly not least, our gentleman of the evening, my guest host, my buddy Marcus Jones. I can't stand him.
Shadow. Oh, okay.
Marcus, don't start. I told
Okay.
you.
All right.
Act right now.
I mean,
Don't
all
act
right.
up tonight.
All right. I'm gonna play Tito. You, Michael. You on Tito. All right.
Y'all, this is my buddy. We are a mess. Introduce yourself to the people, Marcus.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Jones. I am the founder of Rebuke Podcast, which stands for Reestablishing Black Unity, Knowledge, Education, Economics. Basically, we focus on key issues that happen within the Black community and try to provide solutions by bringing specialists on the show. I particularly don't focus on relationships, but I talk about, generational wealth. I talk about getting counseling, therapy. My last person I had, a sister, she created a board game on how to interact with police officers. So I'm around that realm. But every time we on the phone with Angela, we talk about relationships. So she was like, "Yo, come on the show." So and I'm pretty blunt. So she told me to pipe down a little bit. But
I didn't say pipe
but
down.
it's 3 against 1, so it's gonna be hard. So, but I will be taking notes.
He done already started.
I'm taking notes. That's just me. And I work for
Yeah.
the federal government. That's all y'all need to know. I can't give you all the other details. I work for the federal government.
But yes, every time him and I speak, we do have, he's being silly, y'all, but we have amazing conversations about relationships and dating and what it's looking like out here in these streets. And, I think it's important for women to hear the perspective of a man and not just, women, because we always get advice from each other. But I think it's super important to hear a man's point of view as well. And so that is why I invited Marcus on. So let's just jump into it, y'all. Let's jump into it. Again, I know you ladies, you all have, a background in working with others in relationships as it pertains to relationships. What inspired you to kind of take on that work? What inspired you to do that? I'll start with Erica. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, the reason why I got into coaching women as far as breakup recovery and self love, because those were the things that I struggled with the most, is staying in relationships way longer than I should, getting into relationships that I really had no business getting into, and operating out of a lack of self love and not understanding where I was going wrong. Why did these relationships keeps turning out the same way every time? I'm thinking I'm going into them in a different mindset. I'm think I'm doing something different, but the end result was always the same. And so I was pointing the finger at everybody else. And
Yeah.
then I had to really take myself out of the game and get closer with God and understand and let him talk to me and show me it ain't them, it's you.
Yeah.
You need to get right with you. And so from all of those experiences and learning, I became excited about, once things became clear to me, I know that other women will also benefit from the clarity that I've gained. Why should I keep it to myself? Why shouldn't I share it with other women while I'm going through it? I don't have to be an expert at it, but as I'm learning it, I can share it with other women so they don't have to bump their head up against the wall as long as I did.
I love that. And I think that's kind of how this platform started, and everything that I've done that's why I call it ever evolving. Because as I'm evolving, as I'm growing, as I'm learning, I'm like, listen, if this helped me, okay, I'm sure it can help someone else. And I think as women, we don't know the power in that, in sharing with one another what we've learned, our traumas, our experiences. And some of them, yes, are hard to share, and some of them are, very traumatic, and some you can't tell everything, but I do think there is power in sharing and helping someone else, especially instead of like talking about each other, because we got that real bad sometimes. Maybe not you, but people that we know got it real bad about talking about our sisters instead of helping our sisters and having comments. Everybody is criticizing, but I think it's something to be said when you can give constructive criticism. So I love that. What about you, Altagracia? Altagracia, what is the reason why you jumped into this shadow work and healing?
Well, I didn't know I was doing it, and it was all me doing it to myself. So I had been in 3 consecutive abusive relationships, and I had the same epiphany that Erica had, which is what is going on, because all these 3 men were different, and somehow the result in the end was the same. And I too came to the same realization that it was me, that there was a lot of work that I needed to do on me. But I leaned into intuition. And so I leaned, which is God, right? Like intuition is God communicating with you through the senses. And so just leaning into intuition and going into the dark places of myself, parts of me that I wasn't willing to accept or that I wasn't admitting, and doing the work around that. So learning that I wasn't perfect, right? That I am a part of the problem. And so how do I work on me so that I can attract who I want to attract, but also make sure that I honor myself as I'm doing so, because that was something that I realized I wasn't doing before. I would like melt away. And so I decided that I was able to do a lot of healing in just about 2 years, having had 12 years of abusive relationships. And I'm like, there are women out here dealing with it 5-10 years later. And it doesn't have to take that long. It doesn't have to be that long. And it starts by doing the hard work of going in and really starting to, I call, separate your emotion from yourself, so that you can start to objectively look at yourself and really do the work that's necessary to change the trajectory that you're going on.
Separate your emotion from yourself. Woo, girl. I love that. I love that. What about you, Bernadette?
For me, I think that my story mimics the women's in that I had a lot of really bad relationships as well. And I first thought that it was the men's fault. And I'll be the first one to say, like, I had a list of what was going on with them as to why the relationship didn't work. I prided myself on being a really good girlfriend. I thought that, I was doing all the things. I was showing up. I was, trying to make them comfortable. All of these things to the detriment of my own self. And I was definitely abandoning myself in terms of like what my needs and desires were in relationship. But I really wanted to make sure that they weren't going to leave, because I had that trauma of my father not being there. And I didn't want that to be something that repeated in my relationships. And so I did a lot of overcompensating for that, trying to prove my worth in relationships. And all of that I realized was a result of me not understanding that even though my father wasn't there, it was an indictment. It was not an indictment against my character. He chose not to be there. There was nothing that I could have done about that. But as a young child, I didn't get that.
Right.
And so I internalized his absence to mean that something was wrong with me. And I then went into relationships thinking that I needed to prove myself and prove that I was worthy to be loved. And I realized after I had a come into Jesus moment where he had to let me know, like, look, you're the reason that these things are happening because you're the common denominator in all of these failed relationships. You have to look at what you're doing, what you're bringing to the table, how you're showing up. And in doing that, I understood that there was a connection between my father loss, the limiting beliefs and the coping and defense mechanisms that I developed as a result of him not being there, and how I showed up in relationships and what I attracted and what I expected and all of those things. And when I understood what the connection was, I was able to show up differently in relationships. And just in talking to my friends and just sharing my story, I realized that a lot more women than I thought was out there were suffering from the same thing that I did. And so when I finally decided that I wanted to actually take the journey to healing, there weren't any resources out there for me. There was one book. It was written by two white women. One was a dietitian, and I think maybe one was like a psychologist or something like that. And they too were fatherless daughters, but they went out there and were in the trenches and doing the work themselves. There was nothing else. And so I had to search and scour the internet, books, pulling things from here, there, and everywhere, and all around the mulberry bush to figure out, like, what am I going to do about myself? Like, how am I going to survive what's going on? How am I going to get past this? And it took about maybe 3 years for me to be in what I call like the lab, where I was really sitting up there with my notebook. I had my hypothesis. I'm like, if I do this and that, let's see what comes of this. Like, I was really in here, like in the trenches, trying to get this thing worked out. Okay. But I got it and I was able to figure it out. And in doing that, I started to tell people about it. And when I did, I realized that women were silently taking my advice and going back into their relationships and doing the things that I said to do, like the mistakes that I learned. And they were actually implementing things and getting the same results. And once I saw that happening, the Lord tapped me on the shoulder and he was like, okay, now you're ready. I need you to do this for more women. I need you to stop like secretly telling people and start being bold about what it is that I showed you. And that's how I fell into this work. And so now I just do that with my clients and on my podcast. And I just try to make sure that every fatherless daughter I come in contact with knows that she deserves amazing relationships. And if I got to drill it into her head, that's what I'm willing to do.
I love that. Something that I love that is a kind of a puzzle piece, the consistency between all three of you is accountability. And this is why I love having conversations like this because, it's a narrative that's going around that women don't take accountability. They don't apologize. They don't tell you when they're wrong. And most of us may have had seasons, okay, of our lives when we struggle with that, huh? But I think it's interesting that all three of you said the same thing. I'm gonna let you talk just a minute because I saw the hand. I was gonna come to you and ask you that for real though, because all three of you took accountability and was like, "Yo, it was me," and I had to say, "Okay, I need to do some work on me." Marcus, talk about that. Have you seen that, like a lack of accountability, or is that something that you and your guy friends talk about?
You got my mic muted?
right, we hear
No,
you.
we can
Oh,
hear
okay.
you.
My bad. Which is it's a beautiful thing that that y'all took accountability for your actions. But my male friends and male counterparts, I was just praising the Lord for y'all taking accountability. That's all. I wasn't raising my hand.
Well, yeah.
Since she asked me,
Yeah.
we do feel that a lot of women, not all, but a lot of women do not take accountability for their actions when it comes to relationships. When it comes to, if you dated Pookie, Ray Ray, and Neek Neek 3 consecutive ways, and you can't use those 3 dudes and be like Negroes ain't ish. When you attract those Pookie, Ray Ray, and Neek Neek, those are guys you like. So you know what I'm saying. So you need to take accountability. Like, hey, I like dudes rough around the edges. I need to look in the mirror and say I acknowledge that, and maybe look for something different. I think that's a big thing in the black women, a thing in the black women in our black community as well. But I have some black female friends that have problems with accountability, and I'm like, yo, just is you, boo. So it's good that you all, I'm just gonna get that sudden draw. You all take accountability for your actions and actually flipped it and made it to something where y'all helping black women cope with their issues as well.
Yeah. I love it. All right, Marcus, you want to jump into the next question?
Oh yes. I'm very intrigued by Bernadette. And the reason why I'm intrigued about Bernadette is she focuses on something that is very important, because what's going on with my I guess she's my niece or step niece, whatever. She's acting up in school and stuff like that just to get attention. And me and my mom bump heads. And we get in intense arguments about my niece and why she's acting up. And I always tell her it's because she's looking for that love of her father. So this question is, what has been your biggest lesson in love in regards to not having your father there when you was a young woman, a young girl, and not to help you with your transition in love growing up?
I want to say the biggest lesson in love that I had to learn, despite my father's absence, was that it started with how I loved myself. I really feel like you are not going to be able to love anyone else or accept love from someone else if you do not first understand how to provide that for yourself. I am huge about making sure that women, especially in my community, understand what self-nurturing looks like, what self-love looks like, how to speak into themselves and over themselves, and how to build a relationship with themselves first. Because everything that we do is going to be the overflow of what we have already done with ourselves and for ourselves. And if you don't know how to understand your own feelings, to sit with yourself and really get through some things on your own, process emotions that you have, be able to encourage yourself, be able to love on yourself, be able to congratulate yourself and things like that. How do you handle yourself when you're disappointed in your own self? All of these things need to be established as foundations before you can say, I want to be coupled with somebody else in a relationship. So the first thing that I had to learn is what those things look like for me, because fatherless daughters are notorious for really forgetting ourselves and neglecting our needs and desires in relationship in favor for other people. So I had to understand what that looked like for me first. And so what I would say in regards to your niece is that she likely is acting out because her father is not there. And it's one of the classic symptoms that fatherless daughters have, where they are searching for attention, good or bad, from anyone who's willing to give it to them, because they don't have that from their father. And the fact that she's also acting up in school is also a symptom of her father not being there. That's one of the things that I learned that I was super surprised about, that young girls who do not have their father present and who have issues in the home tend to do poorly in school. It's related and it's scientific. So that's something that I would look at as well. You know, like she definitely needs to be dealt with gently, I would say, and not like with a heavy hand, because she's grieving right now and she doesn't understand how to express those emotions or how to handle them. And if we do not teach our children how to process their emotions, they will act out in different ways. And you'll start to see it in things. You won't be able to control it. It will be a spiral and it will be too late to pull her back. So that would be my advice.
I love that. I really do. And I think, we're talking about, I think you mentioned it a little bit. We're talking about, or you're talking about growing up without a father. But a lot of us have had emotionally unavailable fathers. We had a father. He may have been present. He may have been even present in the home. But there's still a lack there that we did not get. And we had the same, I guess you could say, outcomes and the same, looking for love in all the wrong places, trying to fill that void. So I want to also kind of, piggyback on that and say it's super important to do your work. Yeah, you may have your father, he may still be in your life today, but I'm sure that if at any point in your life he was emotionally unavailable, there's something that needs to be. I'm talking, listen, I'm not telling you what I heard, okay? I'm telling you what I know. I had a father in the home, but he never hugged, never told me I was beautiful, never told me, I love you. And I was sharing this story with someone a few weeks ago. I saw him and he went to hug me and I jumped back. I was like, what are you doing? Because I had never had him do that. And it was like, he even laughed because it was like, weird. And that has played a part in all of my relationships, though, a lack of being vulnerable, the fear of being vulnerable, having an ability to express my feelings and to be affectionate. That comes from that. So I think it's important to let women know that is your first example in love. And so it's super important to go back to that, whether you had a father or did not, and do your work. I want to hear from Altagracia. What has been your biggest lesson in love? And then Erica, you as well.
I want to add on to what you just said, because my father was not only present, but he was emotionally available. And yet somehow I still ended up in these situations. Well, not somehow, I know how I ended up in these situations. And so it really does go back to assessing that. Like, I had to recognize that every male partner that I was picking was similar to my father in a lot of ways. And that gave them the pass to do the things that I allowed them to do outside of that box. And so shifting that and detaching myself from the picture that I had with my father and creating a picture that I wanted to be true for me. But again, like Bernadette said, starting with the self. So repeat the question for me, because that was in my mind. I'm like, I need to get that out, because there is that cluster of women like me that did grow up with that, and we still ended up in situations.
Biggest lesson in love to date?
Communication. Honest communication, even if the result of that communication is going to lead to heartbreak, right? But communication, I talk to my partner about everything, and I expect him to do the same. It is the foundation of which we have built our relationship, and it is what's going to sustain our relationship. It's the foundation of respect that we have for one another, the trust that we have for one another. It's because we have that strong communication. And that was something that I didn't have with any of my previous relationships. And I wouldn't advocate, right? So out of, like what Bernadette was saying, out of the fear that I was going to lose this person, I would always think, like, should I say this? Should I not? And then learning that, my needs are very important. What I want is very important. The things that I value are very important. And I get to set my partner up to win by communicating to him what's going on and giving him the opportunity to shift, to maneuver, to talk, to figure out what's going on. So yeah, communication for me is the biggest lesson that I've learned in love.
Girl, I'm a church fan for that. When she said set my partner up to win, I felt that thing in my soul. You got something to say, Marcus?
I know you're going to get to Erica, but real quick, I always say that communication is 50% of everything you do. 50%. If you have it, you don't have it, you failed anyway.
Yeah.
Your relationship, work, whatever, it's 50%, everything you do.
I love that because when you don't communicate, you leave too much room for assumptions. And every time I say, anytime you assume, you're gonna look like the first three letters of the word. You know, you because we go, yeah, our minds just are very imaginative, and we're especially come on, women, like leave me out here. We be making up some stuff in our heads. Like, don't let us call and he don't pick up the phone. You know what I'm saying? Like we by the time he get on, we mad, we pissed off, we slamming doors, we slam stuff because it's like we didn't communicate just to see maybe the phone went dead, maybe. So that's really good. Communication instead of assumption is very good. Erica, your biggest lesson in love.
My biggest lesson in love was to let go of those fairy tale ideas that I had about love because just like Bernadette, I grew up fatherless and I grew up with a fantasy, that my father would come back and get me. My father would come back and rescue me. And I look for that in my relationships with men. I look for them to rescue me. I look for them to get through that hard exterior that I put out there to see who I really was without giving them any leeway to do that. So I had, this fantasy that I could put up this hard wall and somebody, the man that was meant for me, would be able to get through that wall and see me and make me break it down. And so that was my biggest lesson in love, is that I have to be what I'm looking for. I have to be open. So I have to do the work on myself to bring down all those walls, to heal a lot of that damage that, was inflicted by not having my father. But then in the relationships that I got into, a lot of that stuff was self-inflicted by continuously playing that same old movie over and over again, thinking this is going to be the one who's going to save me. This is going to be the one who will save me. All the while, it was my father that I was looking for to save me, but I was looking for it in these men. And so my biggest lesson in love was to stop looking for it outside of myself and start within, and then I could radiate outwardly what I want.
You walk in heaven now. Listen, those expectations, like, and it starts from a little girl, right? It starts from the fairy tales and the stories and the movies that we read. And then it just, when we become adults, it comes the shows and TV and movies. But here lately, that's been my prayer: is God, tear down my unrealistic expectations of love and the marriage that I desire. Like,
Yeah.
in my mind, I know what I desire. I know what I want it to look like. But if it's not what I need and if it's not realistic, tear that down. Like, take that
Mhm.
desire away from me, because I don't want to hold anyone accountable to something that they'll never be able to be for me. I don't want to hold anyone accountable to an expectation. A lot of times, and a lot of times, my expectations have been unspoken things. So I don't want to hold anybody accountable to something I haven't even shared with them that I desire. That isn't
Oh,
fair. Like
yes.
Gracia was saying about setting my partner up to win. That is definitely not setting a partner up to win when you have expectations that you haven't even conveyed. Okay. So I love, love, love that. Moving right along. Okay, Sam. Moving right along. This has been a
Marcus over there
narrative.
dancing.
Okay.
I mean,
Having a good
he got
time.
his notepad out. But listen, there's a narrative that has been going around. And, I have fallen into this, I think, at some point or another. And I want to just talk to the ladies and hear from Marcus about how you feel about women now that are in business, right? We're thriving, especially Black women. We're thriving. We're business owners. We out here doing our thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But there have been times where I felt like I was sacrificing, maybe sacrificing in one way or another, whether it was um, my relationship or my business, feeling like sometimes I had to choose. And there's a narrative that goes out that women, we have to choose. Um, I had an ex tell me, he said, you can't have us, the family, and be doing everything that you're doing. You can't do both and be successful at both of them. I said, excuse me, sir. I'm sorry, because I think I'm doing it every day. You know what I'm saying? But in his mind, he felt like one day you're going to have to choose. And I still struggle with this. And so that's why I want to talk about it, because I do believe that women, we can do everything. We can go after our dreams. We can be amazing wives. We can be amazing mothers. However, is there a sacrifice that is required at some point in our lives when we're going after these goals, but we're trying to also go after the goal of family? Because I think, to me, love is a part of the goal, right? It's not either or. But I want to talk about that, and I'll start with Altagracia.
Automatically in my mind, I'm like, it's not sacrifice, it's compromise. Me and my partner actually came and hit a wall not too long ago because I was working a lot on my business. And he said, I'm the only one cooking, cleaning, taking care of kids. I'm exhausted. And then you want me to come and be happy. And I'm like, oh, shit. Excuse the language.
No, let loose, baby. Let loose.
I'm like, whoa, what's happening? Like, I'm working for us. And then I had some good friends that I could go and bounce this off of. And they're like, no, he's right. And I'm like, what do you mean he's right? And they're like, no, he's right. Because you need to figure out how you're going to balance both. And so I had it in my mind. And when I started it, I did feel how you mentioned. I felt angry because I'm like, I'm not getting enough clients. My business isn't growing. Like, all these things I'm not getting the momentum that I had because I cut down to focus more on the family. And I was resentful because I felt like I had to choose. And when I sat with that and I figured it out, and I'm like, I really want both of these things to work, I started to shift it. And it's not sacrifice, it's compromise. How can I? And I sat down with him and I'm like, my schedule is going to look like this over the next year. Each hour of my day is going to be accounted for. What do I need to do to make you feel loved, supported, and heard? Like, what are the things I need to do that if I just spend 30 minutes doing that day, and that's all I have to give you that day, you're going to feel loved and supported. And it was cook food. Right? That was his first thing. I want you to cook food. Give him time for him, like, make sure that he has him time and make him feel like he's important. And not that I'm using my free time just on the kids. And so now I have days where I don't work. I don't work after a certain time. I'm very clear on my boundaries for my business. And then there are days where it is work. And I expect everyone else to honor that because I'm honoring them outside of that. And so they need to return that to me. So it's just this compromise of how we can make it work. Like, I meal prep now. Like, they're eating stuffed shells that I made 5 days ago because I froze it. And all I had to do was throw it in the oven with sauce. And they all had dinner without me.
That's how you do it.
He feels loved and he feels supported. And I get to sit here and do my hair and get myself together to come and do this thing that's important to me. And so that's what I have to say about that.
You helping me because sometimes we make with sauce.
With the sauce.
We make the compromise within ourselves. And that's what I've been guilty of in the past, of saying, well, this is what I'll do, instead of sitting down and saying, hey, what would work for the both of us? So I love that. What about you, Erica? I want to hear your input.
In the past, I have, like you said, I have compromised inside of myself. And there have been things and desires that I wanted for myself as an individual, but I would kill those things off to be present for everybody else. And I built up silent resentment towards it. And to be perfectly honest and transparent, even as a mother, sometimes I've had resentful moments of motherhood that I put things off that I wanted to do for myself, for my children. And so that was my learning lesson, is I can do both. I can have both. I just have to get better at balancing everything and not, subscribing to this outdated notion that in order to be a good mother and a good wife, you have to give up everything that you want to do as an individual and become what everybody else wants you to be. And then just silently be resentful and have an attitude and not even tell people what you're mad about. So I think that women can do both and be perfectly happy. And in that balance, like Altagracia said, that balance of setting boundaries of, this is going to be the set time that I work on my business or my career. And then this is going to be my set time for my family. And everybody's happy.
I love it. And I love that you brought that up because I've had those moments as a mother as well. Sometimes just feeling like I'm giving more of myself over to the purpose and not as a mother. Like I feel like, if I'm giving all over here, something's like over here, just trying to find that balance. But also that resentment is real. And, people don't like to talk about that because it labels you as a bad mom or selfish or whatever, but we're still human and we have moments. And sometimes it is very difficult, especially when you're dealing with these teenagers who want you to take them everywhere and do everything they asked to do. So I definitely can relate to that, and I love that you brought that up. I felt that. Marcus, you sure been doing this. I'm gonna get to Bernadette, but I want to hear from you about this topic. Can you relate to maybe dating or meeting women that have that?
Shimon. Oh man. I'm sorry. She should have told y'all. She should have debriefed y'all about me, but I
tried.
I'm
Bring
crazy.
it. Bring it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Erica. You my girl. I work, like I said, I work for the federal government. I make decent salary. I make 6 figures. And it seems like the women that and I work, like I said, I work for the federal government, DOD. And it seems like the higher the Black women go up the ladder, the less likely them having a family, a successful family. And I'm seeing that. I'm not saying that what y'all saying is wrong, but what I'm seeing with my eyes, I'm seeing a lot of sisters. They focus on their career. I got to get this salary. I got to get this 6 figures. I got to get that Audi A7 hatchback. You know what I mean? And I got to get that red bottoms. And girl, I got to get that Louis Vuitton purse. You seen that purse? And then by the time they reach all that status, they their stuff popping up dust because they sacrifice so much. They sacrifice so much just to get the career. So it was very vital what Miss Felix said. You got to compromise. You got to know, the key word is really balance. You got to know how to balance in this world because the divine creator, bless women with certain attributes that a man don't have. You get what I'm saying? And vice versa, so when her man said, man, I'm doing all the things and it's just me. He's basically saying, yo, I ain't blessed with these gifts that you got. You know what I mean? So help me, help you. Yeah. So from my standpoint, I love to see a Black woman that's successful and she's married and she has a family. That lets me know that she's balanced. That's a beautiful thing. That means she can balance. But too many times I see so many sisters trying to get that bag, and then they crying and like they know no, you sacrifice Bobby and Leroy for the bag. So you hug that bag at night. You know what I'm saying?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've operated in that mindset before. And I was in a broken place. I was in a toxic place because I felt like if anybody's going to do anything for my life, it's going to be me. And then by all means necessary, I got to, make myself financially stable so I never have to depend on anybody else, and I'm going to go get it. And I'm going to hustle 24/7. I'll sleep when I die. That's that toxic hustle culture that our society pushes, not on just women, but men and women. Right. And I subscribed to it for a long time because I was like, F these dudes. I'm going to get my money. They ain't about nothing anyway. I went through that period. And that's what you're seeing. A lot of women, I became the man that I wanted.
We ain't gonna talk about women with masculinity tendencies, are we? Not this show. That's another episode.
It happens. It happens.
Say it again. Say it one more time.
I became the man that I wanted.
Jeez. I can hang up. The church, the doors of the church are open. So me go ahead and
Okay.
leave.
And
Okay.
in a twisted way, I felt like if I go get all of these things, then when I meet a man, I have the right to say, you have to meet me at this level or above. And that was my mindset.
Jeez. Dang, Erica, like get that symbol look. Golly.
And I want to say one thing real quick. Miss Felix, by you sitting down and coming up with your little schedule and everything, you prevented from that side chick from coming in. So you did a great thing. Because if you didn't sit down and iron out hour by hour, day by day, homeboy is gonna find somebody else to fix that problem. But that's just between me and you. You didn't hear it from me.
I'm like, no, we have these conversations. So it ain't, and that's the communication, right? Like we've talked about that, and that's a whole nother day. But
yes,
I totally agree. I totally agree. And that, like, my calendar is on his phone. So when things are coming up, he knows today at this time she's going to be doing these things. And so I can tell him I have 2 hours. What do you need me to do? Because after this, I'm locked in for all these hours. And so I think you're right. I agree with that shit wholeheartedly.
That's a good point. Like, we don't have to make another episode. That's a good point, because sometimes when those things happen, we want to be but hurt about what happened, not taking accountability for the fact that we were unavailable. We were not there. We were not doing what we supposed to. We were not doing what we agreed upon. Sometimes we get in these relationships and we talk about what it's going to look like, and then as time goes, we get amnesia. But a lot of times the other person don't forget. And so when you're not doing that, they feel neglected. They feel like, you know what I'm saying? They just out here, and it's always going to be somebody waiting in the wings to say, don't worry about it. I'll make you a plate. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about her. And we're oftentimes so busy that we miss things. And so I think that's a great point, and we need to hear it. Balance is everything. And
I'll tell you that, because I was going to say, I'll tell you, we sat down and we talked about that being a thing, right? And his communication to me was, by the time I get to that point, like, I'm going to tell you before I do that. But he made it very clear that he was feeling neglected, and he was feeling like I wasn't making him a priority. And all he wanted is for me to make him feel like he was a priority. He didn't want to feel second or third, and he was feeling like he was second and third. And so I had to recognize that, like, there are things that he needs that if I don't do it, I'm going to find myself with a successful business and my whole household is going to fall apart. And I didn't want that.
With 3 cats.
With 5 kids. We got 5 kids.
Ooh, yeah.
It needs to work.
God. Listen, so, and on that note, I'm gonna wrap this up so I can stick to my my agreement. I ain't gonna be on here all night. But I love that, and I think that is super important. And I want to say this too to women, that balance. When we use the word balance, a lot of times we look out and we try to compare, right, what another woman does, how she does it, especially like social media. Oh my gosh, her kids are always looking like this, and her husband looks like this, and she's always cooking, and I want to just give this disclaimer that I always say balance is what works for you. So if you like you said, you make it 5 days, make the dinner 5 days ahead of time, freeze it, and then put the sauce on there. That's what works for you. If you're a person that, you have somebody make prepared meals, as long as you got it on the table, whatever that is for you, women, I want you to know, do what works for you. Because I used to spin my wheels trying to balance in the ways that I saw other women around me balancing. And that did not work for myself as a single mother at that time, because it was just me. You know what I'm saying? So I want to also put that out there. Marcus, do you have the next point? Are we going to jump into?
Oh, yes. Next question. Single mothers, dating single mothers. It's been a big deal, especially with Kevin Samuels, about dating single mothers. And we hadn't heard from Bernadette in a while. So I wanted to ask her a question. How you feel about, I'm going to put it this way. I know a lot of us, I'm a single guy and, no kids, whatever. And there is a limit when it comes to dating single mothers, when it comes to the kids limit, okay? And how do you feel when men do not like dating women with single mothers with multiple children? How's that felt in the Black community, especially Black women? How that makes you feel that Black men don't want to date single mothers with multiple children?
Honestly, for me personally, I don't have an opinion about it. I think that everyone is entitled to what their preference is. And I think that, once you understand like what your limitation is or what your capacity is in terms of like caring for another man's child, you need to stand in that and just be firm in what it is. What I do think is that sometimes the kinds of expectations that we have, or the list of what is maybe what's appropriate and or what we need for ourselves, can sometimes make us skip out on somebody that might actually be the person for us. So even though I think that people should have their preferences, I really feel like we need to understand what our deal breakers are and what are the things that we would just like to have. Everything is not a deal breaker. And I feel like a lot of people have this list of these absolutes, and it then just, shortens and closes up the dating pool so much that they don't find what they're looking for. But I honestly, like, not wanting to date somebody with multiple kids, I don't see a problem with that. I really don't. Just as somebody may not want to date a man, a single mom may not even want to date a man who doesn't have any kids at all, because they may not understand like what the responsibility is and what the expectation is, and the fact that a woman who has children, her children are going to come before you in a lot of situations because they were there before you were. So there's a lot of nuances, I think, to dating a woman with children, and you need to understand that it's a special kind of circumstance. And if this is something that you can't deal with, you need to be honest about that, and then just date people that you have the capacity to deal with. I feel like everyone needs to do that across the board, whether they have kids or not. Like, understand what your capacity is and deal with people who you have the capacity to deal with, because that's going to make you happy. It's going to really make it so that you actually want to work for the success of the relationship. And a lot of times you end up doing more when somebody is within your capacity than when you're dealing with somebody and you're constantly feeling stressed out. You constantly feel unseen. You constantly feel like, this is something that you can't deal with, and you're trying to stay there because you're trying to be noble. I don't suggest that for anyone.
Well. Thank
Listen,
you, Bernadette, for the
we're
brothers.
gonna give a little backstory to this and why Marcus is doing all of this, because this is a constant conversation between him and I. This is a constant conversation between him and I. And I always say this: I do agree that it's the man's preference, right? The issue that I have with it is the narrative that is put out there. Again, you mentioned Kevin Samuels. Like, if she has multiple kids, she's damaged goods. She's trash. Like, she's not going to know how to prioritize you. It's going to be all about her kids. And like Bernadette said, I do think there are some aspects that will, be difficult, and she may have to shift. But some women aren't even given the opportunity to show a man that they're able to have these kids and still be what he needs, because there is a narrative that is going out that women who have children, if you haven't heard it, it's there. Women who have children, they're damaged goods. How many kids you got? Oh, ain't a man.
It's been a narrative. It's just Kevin Samuels just put it on the megaphone. But go ahead.
So that, I think, is why I want to talk about this topic, because I want to encourage women that, again, it's your preference. If he don't want to date you, sis, because you have multiple kids, that's his business. Respect it. Don't get mad at him. Respect it. And like Bernadette said, date someone who has the capacity. But it's the narrative that I have an issue with. I want to hear from Erica, because I kind of saw that head go like this and that face.
Yeah, it's the stereotypes for me. It's the blanket statements, and it's the lumping all single mothers into one category that I don't like. Everybody's situation is individual. You won't know the woman's situation until you get to know her personally. Um, and for me, I don't take it personally when a man says he doesn't want to date a woman with kids, because that just X's him from my dating pool. Because anybody that doesn't like me, I don't like them, and I don't take it personally. Just like if a man says, I don't date women over a certain weight, I'm like, that's cool. I need to know that. So I know that you and I wouldn't be able to be anything but friends. It's good to know people's preferences up front. It's bad once you take their preferences as a personal attack against you. When you know who you are and you have love for yourself, you don't get offended when somebody says what their preference is. If it excludes you, you move right along, and you find somebody who can deal with your situation and who wants to get to know you personally, and who doesn't take what some dude on YouTube says as the gospel and not get to know you for himself. And so that's how I feel about that.
Now, Marcus, I want to ask you this. We talked about this, but I don't think I've ever directly asked you. So, women with kids is absolutely
Mm-hmm.
out.
She has. I'm 38. I'm about to turn 39 soon. Actually, next month. So the likelihood of a woman of my age bracket not having any children is very slim to none. But I can date a woman with a child that's willing to have a child. Now, this is my problem. You have a woman with 2 or 3 kids. I ain't having no kids, but you want me to take care of yours? And you get what I'm saying? So you ain't gonna start no Lion King dynasty for me, but you want me to take care of this dude that wears a size 14 shoe. Negro, please. Like what Bernadette said, I have preferences. That's my preference and everything. And there are some negative stereotypes. We can get into them, but I don't want to, because this show will stir to the right if we go into them stereotypes. But we as men, especially the one in a profession in a professional career paths, we kind of view women like with a lot of kids with damaged goods and stuff like that, and we try to steer away from them because there's some negative connotation that comes with it. Because for example, if I date somebody with three kids and I didn't have none, whatever, a lot of dudes will call me a simp. You know what I'm saying? Point blank. And so if a man doesn't have respect, he doesn't have anything. So if he ain't respected among his male peers, it's kind of hard. So like we call men simps or Captain Save'ems. If you date somebody with multiple kids, you know what I'm saying, especially have multiple kids by multiple fathers. So, but like Bernadette said, to each his own. Your preferences, you can't operate in that. I told a woman straight up, I can't take care of them 3 kids, man. Size 15. She in ballerina class. That's and inflation is crazy. So it all depends on the individual. So I could date 1, maybe 2, but I ain't going beyond 2.
So I have a question.
Interesting.
Oh,
yeah,
Lord, see you set me up. See, I don't like that.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
I have a question.
Let me turn my screen off. To play it.
So is the issue that you feel the single women that you've been attracting are expecting you to take care of their children? Is it that? Is it that they also don't want to have children and you want to have your own children as well? Because I feel like there's some layers here to this preference of not wanting to date a single mother. And based on what you're saying, I'm hearing some other stuff there. So I'm just curious. Is it that you don't want to take care of another woman's child? Is it that you feel like women with multiple children are not going to want to have your child and you want to have your own legacy? What is it? Because if you have a woman who's around your age who is not asking you to take care of her kids, and she comes in, let's say, with 3 kids, by the same man, he passed away. She is already financially stable. She can take care of her own children. She has not asked you to come in on that. And she also wants to have more kids. That's unacceptable. Is that still going to make you look like a simp? Because this whole talk about your friends,
That's
not
the part I
respecting
feel.
you,
Yeah.
that's a little, that's, let's just be real. Because it's like,
I
you're,
couldn't hear that word. That word got blurred out with that is what?
I said, that's weak. You're your
Oh,
own
weak.
man. I didn't say you're weak. I said
No. Okay.
the idea that somebody else, like some other man, is telling you that they feel like what you've decided to do in terms of the responsibility that you want to take is a certain thing, that now you shouldn't do it because you might lose respect with them. That sounds funny to me. That sounds like, like what's going on there? So you don't have the presence of mind to say, like, this is what I want to do because I love this woman and I want to be with her regardless of what her kids. It doesn't matter what these men say because this is my relationship. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious about what this really is.
I mean, you asked about 3 or 4 questions. So let me address I think one of them. For me, I always wanted my own tribe. You know what I'm saying? So that's just be period. Secondly, I don't know. You asked something. He was going. So the women that I kind of attract, kind of want somebody to take care of them. That's just me, and I feel that they look at me as Captain Simp. So I try not, and I'm far from that. So that's part of it. So it's a twofold for me. I want my own, and there's the most of the women I run across. They find out where I work at, find out the benefits. Oh, he good. No, that's not me. That's just me though. That's just me. Now I have met some women that have their own children, have multiple children, and they're doing their thing. And that's great. But for me, I want my own tribe. Cut it short.
I'm gonna jump in here and I'm gonna say that we're gonna make this an after show topic. I'm headed to Instagram after this to continue this portion of the conversation because I'm with Bernadette and Marcus. I see, we talked about this and I understand, your preference and what you desire, but I'm kind of like Bernadette. I do want to know like what I heard. Like I heard so many different things that I am curious to know what. Is it one thing or the other? Is it all 3? So we're going to make that an after show topic. But in conclusion, I want to kind of ask 2 more questions here. And this is it is general. I know it will be specific to individuals, but just something that we can give the watchers, viewers. What do women want men to really know about us? Whether that is debunking something that some of these narratives talked about tonight, whether that is something that you felt was important to let your partner know. What is something that women really want men to know or take away from tonight's episode? And I'll start with Altagracia.
Like, why me? I would say that I'm emotional and that's okay. Right? Like I'm a woman and my emotions are a strength that I have. They don't make me weak. And so I want my man to be able to have the capacity to hold space for me. And I think other women want that too. And whatever that looks like for each individual woman. I know some women are more openly emotional, others are not. I'm out there in the wind. I let it all pour out. And so for the women that are like me, sometimes we just need to let it out. And all we need for you to do is hold space and not judge. And allow us to be in that femininity, allow us to be in that space. And then when we're ready to get up and get back on track, then you're there to just help us do that. That's just one.
That. Yeah. Our emotions don't make us weak or crazy. Because sometimes that label is put on us when we are emotional. And I love what you said. Like, it's like you want us to be feminine. You want us to, go through this relationship in our feminine energy. Then you can't shut that part of us down, because that
Yeah.
is a part of our femininity and what makes us the women that we are. Bernadette.
I would like men to know that a lot of the things that happen to us do create a hardness that sometimes we are not aware of. And I think that if we can be met with empathy, in that you're asking us what happened and how can I support you, rather than blaming us for things that sometimes were out of our control, and holding us responsible for aspects of our life that we did not ask for. I feel like that would make relationships a lot better, and we would feel a lot safer to actually engage in things and take down the walls that we have and things like that. I really feel like a man being the provider of the home needs to understand that that goes far beyond physical and financial, that it also has to do with mental, spiritual, and sexual. And if he can understand what being a provider and a protector is in those aspects, other than financial, then I really feel like women would feel so much safer, and you would see the femininity that you actually want. But a lot of times, what's not understood is that the experiences that we've had have made it so that we have had to be in survival mode. We've had to put on an armor, and that armor is masculine. We understand that a lot of the times. And because we had to put that armor on and we've had to wear that as an identity for so long, it's really, really hard to take it off, to be soft, and to be feminine. And a lot of women are trying to work on that. Some of them have a path forward, some of them don't know. But if we could be met with grace and empathy while we're on that journey, it would make it so much easier for us to be the feminine woman that you want us to be.
Love it, Erica. Okay, mic drop.
Drop the
Next.
mic. I would want men to know that we are not your enemy. We want to be in community with you. We want to understand you. We want to be understood. We want to be seen and heard as much as we want to see and hear you. And so these kind of conversations is more indication of that. Um, we want to bring that family unit back together, even though we sometimes idolize, the old fashioned relationships. And then we found out a lot of those were toxic, everything. We've learned from that stuff, and we're making improvements, and we're learning from our ancestors' mistakes so that we can pass along healthier relationship, practices, so that we can bring families back together. So we want to be in community with y'all, and we want to, bridge that gap that I've seen getting bigger between us. So we invite y'all to have these conversations with us, and so that we can both hear each other.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly. That's definitely purpose. Go ahead, Marcus. I'm sorry.
I'm not. I just love it. I hear femininity from the Miss Felix. I hear empathy from Bernadette, and I hear community from Erica. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's beautiful. That's what we need, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the purpose of tonight's episode. Even the males panel that we had, I do both sides. And I brought a male co-host so that we understand that, like you said, we're bridging the gap. We don't want to fight, I really no fighter. So
Thank you.
I love this conversation. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Marcus, for joining me tonight. I'm going to give you all opportunity before we go over to Instagram. I want to talk a little bit more. Before we go over there, I want you all to know, or let people know, how they can stay in contact with you. And we'll start with Erica.
You can follow me on Instagram at dope discussions _pod. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Dope Discussions Live. If you just type that in and go ahead and subscribe. We also have a Facebook page, which is also called Dope Discussions Live. So you can go follow that page. All updates about upcoming topics and shows are updated weekly and daily on those pages, so you can find out what's going on with us.
Awesome, awesome. Make sure you go follow. Dope Discussions is a great show. Also, Gracia, how can people stay in contact with you, lady?
Instagram is where I'm the most active, and it's right there at R2E Coach. I'm the same on Facebook, but I'm mostly active on IG, so follow me there. I also have a free workbook that people can download. It's called Honor Your Triggers, and it's meant to help you change the relationship you have with your triggers so that you can use them as a tool for healing and stepping into what it is you truly desire. But follow me on IG, DM me. I always respond.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. All right, Bernadette, how can people stay in contact with you?
You can find me on IG as well. It's at the handle Bernadette N. Jackson. All of the links are in my bio there. I am also the host of the Bernadette Jackson podcast, so you can find that link in my bio. And I want to point you to my free training. It's called How to Conduct a Relationship Autopsy. It will teach you how to find the patterns in your past relationships so that you have a path forward on getting to the relationships that you deserve. So slip into my DMs. Let me know how you thought this conversation went tonight. I love connecting with you, and you can find everything that you need there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Oh, you asking for it. She has some slipping her DM. She asking for it. Yeah, a beautiful discussion today. If you can follow me at my Instagram at rebuke_podcast, or you can go on Facebook and look up the type in the word rebuke, RE.B.U.K.E.E, and look up Rebuke Podcast, and you can follow me there, and you can see all the topics I talk about regarding the Black community. So, peace.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And all of these wonderful guests and co-hosts are tagged over on my page. So if you go to the last few posts, you will see all of them tagged there. If you didn't catch it, make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel to watch this, and all of the replays. And season 1 through 4 are available on all streaming platforms. Okay, because your girl is gonna be out of here. I love you all. Thank you again for joining me. Have a good night.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.